He leaned across the table, voice trembling with rage, and slammed the employee manual in front of me. "Follow the rules, James. To the letter." I stared at the creased, coffee-stained cover of the manual and nodded. Not because I agreed, but because in that moment something inside me shifted. "You want me to follow the rules? Fine, I will. And when your entire little kingdom burns down because of it, don't you dare blame anyone else." Let me rewind for a second. 3 minutes earlier, I was trying to explain to my new manager that skipping one of the 12 mandated shutdown procedures would save us from a $30,000 system crash. I've been working at this distribution center for 5 years. I know this system better than anyone here, probably even better than the engineers who installed it. But my new boss, Mike, who came in straight from corporate with no floor experience, didn't want to hear it. "No exceptions," he barked. "That's not how this company works anymore." I felt a dozen eyes on me from the operators across the room. They all knew. They'd all seen it before. Mike was the kind of manager who thought being feared was the same thing as being respected. The type who would rather be technically right and catastrophically wrong, just to flex authority. So I did it. I followed every step in the manual. All 12 of them. I paused for exactly 30 seconds between each one like it said. I filled out every line in the outdated paper logbooks. I didn't override the warning signals. I didn't skip the redundant safety checks. I did it by the book to the letter. And by the time we got to step 10, just as I had predicted, the entire conveyor line went into lockdown. A frozen, mechanical scream echoed through the facility, followed by dead silence. Orders worth tens of thousands just stopped. Mike turned pale. His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't say a word, just stormed back into his office and slammed the door behind him. That was the beginning. That was the day I decided to become a malicious compliance machine. If he wanted rules, I would give him rules. Every last one. Before Mike ever walked through the factory gates, life at Redwood Logistics wasn't perfect, but it worked. We had our quirks, our outdated procedures, and the occasional machine that squealed like it was on life support, but we also had balance. We had an understanding. My name is James Miller, 32, shift operations engineer for Redwood's West Division. I'd worked my way up from an entry-level floor runner to a supervisor who knew the difference between a warning beep and an imminent shutdown just by the way it echoed off the steel beams. The crew trusted me. I wasn't their boss, but I was the guy they came to when things got weird. And in a warehouse that processes 500,000 units a week, weird happens a lot. We weren't the fastest, we weren't the flashiest, but we were efficient because we were flexible. And that flexibility came from one thing: trust. Trust that if a sensor glitched, we'd override it. Trust that if we skipped a step in the logbook, it was because we were prioritizing uptime. Trust that when things got rough, we had each other's backs. Not some rulebook from corporate that hadn't been updated since 2008. Then came Mike. He was in his early 40s, freshly parachuted in from strategic oversight at headquarters. I remember the first day he arrived, clean shoes, clipboard in hand, no safety goggles. Said he didn't need them since he wasn't planning on touching anything. Red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 was his speech. He gathered the floor crew in the break room and told us that Redwood needed to be brought into the 21st century. That compliance wasn't optional. That cutting corners would no longer be tolerated. That from now on, rules were gospel. People rolled their eyes. A few laughed behind their hands. I didn't. I knew the type. Mike was the kind of manager who didn't understand how things worked, but thought he could fix them with metrics. The kind who'd fire someone for saving the day if they broke a rule to do it. First, I tried to meet him halfway. I offered to walk him through the real-time adjustments we made on the floor, showed him how we rerouted product loads during scanner misfires, explained how temporary overrides prevented hour-long shutdowns. But he wasn't interested in learning. He was interested in controlling. He began auditing logs daily, looking for mistakes like a teacher with a red pen. Started calling out team leads for non-compliance if they skipped redundant entries. He even reprimanded Miguel, a guy with 10 years of spotless performance, for fixing a conveyor jam before filing a service request. It didn't take long for morale to tank. The crew went from solving problems to fearing them. Instead of jumping in to help, they froze, waiting for permission. Every second wasted meant lost throughput, delayed shipments, angry clients. And every time I tried to raise this, Mike shut me down with the same smug line, "Follow the rules." So I did. Oh, I followed them better than anyone ever had. The opportunity to strike came sooner than I expected. 2 weeks after Mike's declaration that rules were sacred, we were scheduled to run a high-volume order for one of our biggest clients, an e-commerce giant I won't name. Their packages had a tight turnaround window, and any delay on our end meant they'd reroute to another warehouse for future contracts. Big money was on the line. That morning, I got the alert. Sensor cluster B12, located in the heart of the sortation matrix, was showing inconsistent readings. I knew this sensor like the back of my hand. It had a minor misalignment that flared up during high humidity, and today the warehouse felt like a sauna. Normally, I'd recalibrate it manually, bypass the hiccup, and keep the flow moving. Takes less than 5 minutes and saves thousands. But not today. Instead, I filled out the equipment error report, as per procedure 4.3.1a. Then I logged the incident in the red binder, initialed each step, and submitted a copy to maintenance. I waited for their response, because Section 7.2 states that only maintenance can authorize temporary bypasses. That took 35 minutes, during which packages began to pile up on the main belt. The system, interpreting the bad sensor data as a critical fault, rerouted loads to secondary lanes, which then overflowed. The forklifts started clogging up the transit zones. By the time the technician arrived and realized it was a false flag, over 2,000 units were delayed. Mike stormed down from his office, face redder than a safety cone. "What the hell is going on?" he barked. I handed him the form, complete with timestamps, initials, and error codes. "I followed protocol," I said calmly. "You should have overridden it. I wasn't authorized to. Section 7.2. Remember?" His mouth opened, but no words came out. I could see the twitch in his jaw. I was still respectful, still calm, but I had cornered him with his own rulebook. He walked away without another word. That was the moment something clicked. I realized that malicious compliance wasn't just about following rules, it was about weaponizing them. The same policies he used to punish my team could become the very instruments of his downfall. And I got good at it. The next week, a shipment was flagged for having an incorrectly labeled SKU. Normally, I'd walk the product over to inventory, get it relabeled, and scan it back into the system. 2 minutes, tops. Instead, I isolated the item, tagged it as a level 2 mislabel, initiated a full bin audit, and froze the entire rack. 37 other products were put on hold for 24 hours. Mike didn't say a word. He couldn't. Every move I made was by the book. Soon, others caught on. My team saw what I was doing not out of spite but as a survival tactic. We stopped solving problems. We started logging them. We became an army of rule followers, each move deliberate, each step backed by policy. Productivity plummeted. Client satisfaction dropped. Upper management began asking questions. And still, Mike refused to adapt. He doubled down, sent out emails reminding everyone that compliance is non-negotiable, that shortcuts equal liability. So I gave him compliance, more than he could handle. There's a point in every war where you stop defending and start attacking. For me, that moment came when Mike tried to make an example out of Sarah. Sarah was one of the best line leads we had, smart, fast, and calm under pressure. She knew how to fix a misaligned diverter with nothing but a wrench and sheer force of will. She didn't break rules to be reckless. She broke them to prevent chaos. So when she redirected a package manually during a scanner glitch, just to keep the belt moving, Mike slapped her with a formal warning. No conversation, no context, just a printed form left on her locker. That was it. The team was done. We stopped talking in break rooms, stopped improvising. Everything became documented. Every malfunction became a ticket. Every workaround became a deviation report. Even things we knew how to fix in seconds were left untouched. It was beautiful. in a terrifying, Kafkaesque kind of way. Mike, oblivious to the Cold War unfolding beneath him, kept doubling down. He launched a new policy, zero-tolerance operational compliance, which required all employees to log every action taken on shift, even toilet breaks. The document was 17 pages long. It needed to be filled out twice per day. And so we did. Twice a day. Per person. 40 employees. That's 80 reports. You could practically hear the printers screaming. Meanwhile, I deployed the nuke. See, there's this thing called a full compliance audit. It's a rarely used protocol that can only be initiated by someone at the engineering level, which I just happen to be. It requires the temporary suspension of all expedited processes, a cross-verification of every safety procedure, and a mandatory review of all equipment logs for the past 60 days. Normally, it's used after workplace injuries or major accidents, but technically, it could be used anytime there was a concern of system integrity, and I was concerned. Deeply, so I initiated it. The audit took 3 days. 3 days where nothing moved without triple authorization, where every workstation needed clearance before restart, where even scanning a single barcode required supervisor presence. We lost 2 contracts, and Mike, he was summoned upstairs. I wasn't in the meeting, obviously, but I heard the shouting. I heard his name being screamed across the second-floor mezzanine. I saw the look on his face when he came down. The kind of look you get when you realize you've been playing checkers in a room full of chess players. The fallout didn't happen overnight. Corporate doesn't move fast. Not unless you mess with money. And after the full compliance audit, money was being messed with. 2 key contracts had been lost. Client satisfaction ratings had plummeted. And, most damning of all, the average processing time had doubled over the past month. So HQ sent someone down. Her name was Carol, Director of Operations Audit. She had the sharp eyes of someone who'd seen through 100 lies and wasn't impressed by any of them. She walked in with a tablet, a clipboard, and a tone that could slice steel. Her first question, "Who approved this audit?" I raised my hand. "And why?" "Concern over system integrity," I said. She blinked once, then nodded. Then she turned to Mike. "Was there an incident?" Mike stammered. "And not exactly, but..." "So no incident, just inefficiency." He nodded. She scrolled through her tablet. "Interesting, because inefficiency seems to be a result of the audit, not a cause. And these delays..." She turned the screen toward him. "You signed off on all of them." Mike opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Carol wasn't done. "I see here that you issued a level 2 disciplinary warning to a team lead for bypassing a non-critical scanner fault. That same fault later caused a 4-hour delay because it wasn't manually rerouted. Did you know that?" I didn't realize." "Of course you didn't." She tapped her screen again. "And here's the policy you implemented. 17 pages of self-reporting. Do you know how many labor hours were wasted printing and filing these?" "I thought..." "You thought wrong." That was when she turned to me. "I've reviewed your logs, James. Your team's actions were compliant, excessively so. But within policy." I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Carol did. It was small, but I saw it. Mike was demoted by the end of the week. Reassigned to a desk job in compliance training. Ironic, really. Our floor got a new manager. Someone from inside. Someone who'd actually worked the belts. And me? I got a handshake. No medal. No promotion. Just a firm shake. And a whispered, "Well played." And honestly, that was enough. I still work at Redwood. Same shift. Same floor. Same machines humming their tired song through concrete walls. Not much has changed on the surface. But underneath, everything is different. Our new manager walks the floor with us. She listens. Not just to problems, but to people. She asks questions like, "What do you think?" instead of, "Who messed up?" And that changes everything. Compliance is still a thing, of course. Rules still matter. But now, so does context. So does experience. So does trust. Sometimes I still get asked if I regret what I did. If it was worth it. Let me answer that the only way I know how. Last week, one of the new hires, barely 20, nervous, first warehouse job, accidentally rerouted a batch of high-priority packages to the wrong dock. I saw it happen, and I saw the panic on his face when he realized. Old Mike would have written him up before the packages even stopped moving. But our new manager, she walked over, knelt beside him and said, "Let's figure this out together." That's when I knew it was worth it. Not because I won, but because we all did. Malicious compliance is a funny thing. People think it's about revenge or pettiness. It's not. It's about justice. About giving people a taste of the rules they worship until they realize that rules without empathy are just weapons. Used wrong, they hurt people. Used right, they protect them.